Dr. Ruth is the 87-year-old sex columnist who, for the past several decades, has been dispensing mostly common sense and scientifically accurate sex advice until this week, when she went on record as saying that she believes that the holy book, the Talmud, has guided her to believe that men, by their very nature, are uncontrollable animals. And, of course, because of that, women should never, ever, ever be naked in the same room as them lest they be raped. Dr. Ruth says that she's very worried about the idea of a man and a woman laying in bed together when the woman changes her mind and decides that she would rather not have penis and vagina sex. Now, obviously, this isn't a rare viewpoint. We hear this all the time, but Dr. Ruth is an extremely intelligent and well-educated woman. But apparently, in this circumstance, she's decided to abandon her many years of education and instead rely upon a holy book. Usually the reaction to this sort of comment is for most people to defend women, which is a very good reaction because this is exactly the kind of thinking that leads to victim blaming women usually for their own rapes instead of placing the blame on the rapist. The other angle, though, is how incredibly dehumanizing this is for men. As a woman, I would be so angry if someone was going around saying that men can never be naked in the same room as a woman without the fear that she might anally fist him or force him to put his penis in her vagina. It's ridiculous because women are not insane, uncontrollable animals who are completely at the whim of their desires. And you know what? It turns out, according to the science, neither are men. There's been no scientific evidence to suggest that rape happens because men just in general become overwhelmed with their own desire and are forced to take it out on the nearest woman. There have been a lot of really interesting studies on how people think when they are sexually aroused. One in particular, Dan Ariely's Heat of the Moment, is one of my favorite studies because it involved having men masturbate and then rate how attracted they were to certain people, things, and ideas. And what Ariely found was that when men were in the process of masturbating, they were much more likely to say that they were sexually attracted to things that they found off-putting when they were not masturbating. And they said that they were more likely to be interested in immoral behaviors that might lead to having more sex. It's an interesting study, but it's worth bearing in mind that it was only done on 35 male students who were self-reporting. Although admittedly, the self-reporting was done in a very entertaining manner since it involved a special program on a laptop that was covered in plastic before given to the students to take home and conduct the study, which is a really great euphemism to use in general. Also, the study was about what they were thinking about and not their actual behaviors. And as we can tell from millions of really weird porn channels, our desires don't always or even often match up to our actual behaviors. Meanwhile, all of the studies that do look at men's actual behavior when they rape show that it's not at all like them just turning into an animal due to sexual desire. Instead, a lot of rapes are actually premeditated, and they don't happen in the heat of the moment. So the idea that men are animals that can't control their desires isn't one that comes from science. It's one that comes from things like religion, as Dr. Ruth shows. So I really hope that Dr. Ruth maybe takes a few classes on sexual psychology, a few refresher courses so she knows what the current thinking is regarding actual human behavior. Because really, I know she's 87 years old, but if you're young enough to give interviews where you are educating the public about these topics, then you're young enough to learn the actual science behind what you're saying.